You want this pillow? No, thank you, it's fine. Yes, please. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jai Shri Gauranitai ki, Jagannath Baladev Subhadramaya ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, chapter 11, entitled Jada Bharat instructs King Rahugana, and text number 9. Ekadasha sanmana sohi vrittaya akutaya panchadiyo bimanaha matrani karmani puram chatasam vadanti haikada shavira bhumihi ekadasha sanmanaso hivritaya akutaya panchadiyo bimanaha matrani karmani puram chatasam vadanti haikada shavira bhumihi ekadasha san manaso hivritaya akutaya pancha diyo bimanaha matrani karmani puram chatasam vadanti haikada shavira bhumihi. Prabhu's, please repeat.
Ekadasha sanmanaso hivritaya akutaya panchadiyo vimanaha matrani karmani puram chatasam vadanti haikadasha virabhumihi.
Thank you, Vaishnavis. Thank you. Word after word. Ekadasha, 11. Asan, there are. Manasa, of the mind. He, certainly. Vrittayaha, activities. Akutayaha, senses of action. Pancha, 5. Diyaha, senses for gathering knowledge. Abhimanaha, the false ego. Matrani, different sense objects. Karmani, different material activities. Puramcha, and the body. Society, nation, family, or place of nativity. Tasam, of those functions. Vadanti, they say. Ha, O. Ekadasha, 11. Vira, O hero. Bhumihi, fields of activity. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. There are 5 working senses and 5 knowledge-acquiring senses. There is also the false ego. In this way, there are 11 items for the mind's functions. O hero, the objects of the senses, such as sound and touch, the organic activities, such as evocation, and the different types of bodies, society, friendship, and personality are considered by learned scholars the fields of activity for the functions of the mind. Purport. The mind is the controller of the 5 knowledge-acquiring senses and the 5 working senses. Each sense has its particular field of activity. In all cases, the mind is the controller or owner. By the false ego, one thinks himself the body and thinks in terms of my body, my house, my family, my society, my nation, and so on. These false identifications are due to the expansions of the false ego. Thus one thinks that he is this or that. Thus the living entity becomes entangled in material existence. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langate Grim Yat Kripatamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamina Namaste Sarasvata Deve Gauravani Pracharina Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshatarina Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. I would like to ask for your blessing so that I may be able to speak something nice, something useful for everyone here. I don't consider myself qualified to sit in front of you on this Vyasasan, but I was requested by Damodar Prasad Prabhu and I couldn't refuse him because he's always very kind he's always accepting us into this temple and feeding us very nice prasadam and taking very nice care of us. And we're very happy to come here again and again. So I felt indebted to accept such request from him. We are on traveling Sankirtan right now. We're traveling for 10 days. We're doing the Nisimha Marathon. And this verse actually speaks about the mind, which is one of the worst enemies of devotees, of materially conditioned devotees. Because the mind is very troublesome. It has many functions, one of them being the false ego, and it puts us in many difficulties in our spiritual journey. As devotees, just like karmis do, many times, naturally people identify with their family, nationality, society, religion, and so on. When we go out on the street, we can very easily see that we deal with so many people who have so many ideas, so many false identifications. And many times it happens that also while living in a temple, while serving, while being a devotee, we also identify ourselves with many different posts or many different posts, is that the correct word? Like temple designations, exactly. Like we might, we are temple presidents, we are Sankirtan leaders, or doing all these other different services. And it can be dangerous because we might forget about Krishna in all of this. Or as devotees, sometimes we tend to identify ourselves with devotee things like different types of bodies, like Srila Prabhupada says here in the purport. I cannot remember where. And I cannot find it now. Oh, yeah, actually it's in the verse, the different types of bodies. And I guess this can refer to like Ayurveda also, like, devotees are well aware of this Pitta, Vata, Kapha and so on. And they're very self-conscious many times about taking care of their body and eating what's right, refusing prasadam because it's not good for them, for their body. It's too spicy, or it's with tomatoes, and it's going to agitate their constitution. So it's important to understand the science behind this false identification with the body, and to cut it from the root. Because ultimately there is a verse Srila Rupa Goswami writes in his Padyavali, where he's saying that I'm not a Brahmana, I'm not a Kshatriya, I'm not a Vaishya or a Shudra. That I'm a Brahmachari, householder, Vanaprastha or Sannyasi. I identify myself only as the servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis. He's like an ocean of nectar, and he is the cause of universal transcendental bliss. He's always existing with brilliance. If we don't take on this, if we take on these designations but we don't see them in connection with Krishna, then there is the danger. If we actually learn to see these designations in connection to Krishna, there is no danger. And we can see here that there is the example of King Rahugana, who was very proud, and he was considering himself the king and kind of the ultimate controller, and he didn't really, he was not very aware of Krishna or his devotees. Thus he could not understand Jadabharata's greatness. But for example, we can see Yudhishthir Maharaj, who was also a king, and he was not just a king, but he was the emperor of the whole world. And it's a very high position materially, but still he always remained Krishna conscious, and he always acted under Krishna's guidance and always thinking of Krishna. These verses, this whole chapter is the instructions of Jadabharata to King Rahugana, and they're quite philosophical instructions, quite hard to understand. Even King Rahugana, who was considering our fallen position in Kali Yuga, King Rahugana, he was surely greater than us and in spiritual knowledge and understanding. But even he had difficulties to understand this knowledge, and at the beginning of next chapter, he's inquiring further, and then Jadabharata explains further this knowledge. But ultimately, there are so many intricacies to it. Also, for example, Lord Kapila Dev is explaining to Devahuti, to his mother, all this knowledge, and it's like so complex, and personally I just cannot comprehend, and I cannot remember these things. I don't find any taste in studying them and so on. I don't feel it's nourishing me spiritually. But in a way that's something that's natural, because we cannot really aspire to understand such topics and to really get spiritual realization from them, especially in Kali Yuga. But even Jadabharata, at the end of his instructions to King Rahugana, he mentions this verse. It's in 12th chapter. Rahugana ita tapasana yati nache jaya nirvapanad grihadva nachanda sanaiva jalagni surer vina mahat padarajo bishekam. That only by smearing yourself with the dust of the lotus feet of great devotees can you really understand this absolute truth. And by getting their mercy, getting the mercy of the great devotees. And in order to really be able to get the mercy of great devotees, we have to serve them. There is a verse in Bhagavad Gita that says, Tad vidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevayo padakshanti tegyanam gyanina statva darshinaha. That by inquiring submissively and serving the spiritual master, the great devotees, then they reveal the purports of the Vedic wisdom to us. And thus we can understand, we can see the truth, because they are also seers of the truth. So in the temple we may do so many services, and many times we just kind of get lost in them. We start identifying ourselves with these services, and it's very easy to lose our Krishna consciousness. At least that's my personal experience, and the experience that I heard from many senior devotees who are guiding me and who are helping me in my spiritual journey. Last year I was asked in Budapest to take on this role as a Sankirtan leader, and I've been getting more and more responsibilities since then, and my Sankirtan kept going down and more, like in time and intensity and so on. And my absorption in Krishna consciousness, I noticed it changed, because I started to be so engaged in so many things, and to feel myself as being the controller in all these activities, to be the one that needs to get these things done. And that's simply because I'm a conditioned soul, and I have so many anarthas, and there is still this desire to control and so on. So as long as we have that, we are walking on a razor edge, and it's very easy to fall at any point, so we have to be very careful. And ultimately, in everything that we might be doing, whether it's kitchen service, commanders, and all these kind of things, the goal is Sankirtan, because ultimately we are part of the Sankirtan mission. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give this Sankirtan. And Sankirtan doesn't only mean book distribution. Sankirtan is mainly three things. It's Harinam, book distribution, and Prasadam distribution. It's preaching. It's reaching to others and sharing with others the holy name, but also chanting it ourselves and absorbing ourselves. And this, by keeping this goal in mind in all our activities, then we can really experience the nectar of Krishna consciousness. But it's not easy. I tried it for the past year, and I've been failing again and again, because whenever I couldn't go out on Sankirtan, I always felt my consciousness, and I felt myself deprived of Krishna consciousness, of really being able to absorb nicely and to be in high spirits and to taste the actual nectar of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, I think, like for example, yesterday when we arrived here, I heard devotees screaming like Haribol. I heard some kartals, and I looked out the window from our room and I saw that the van arrived from Harinam. And it was very nice. Devotees were very ecstatic, and it was such a nice mood to see. And that's exactly like, I think, what we should really try to absorb ourselves in and make the goal of our practice. That and the goal of our all activities to support the Sankirtan mission, because it's really blissful. I'm sure that none of you really find that bliss in temple administration or in kitchen service and all these kind of things. It just doesn't work. It cannot work. Of course, these things are important. We have to maintain these activities, because ultimately this is how we are going to increase the Krishna consciousness movement. But if we continue doing these activities, but we don't have the Sankirtan mission, the Sankirtan mood and spirit, and we don't have it as the main goal and focus in our activities, then everything else can go out the window, because it will not matter. We can have temples, and very beautiful temples, very nicely maintained, but if Sankirtan is missing, then people will not join, we will not feel the bliss of Krishna consciousness ourselves, and we'll just fall down. Srila Prabhupada said this famous quote that in a letter he wrote, that temples are not places for eating and sleeping, they're bases from which the Sankirtan devotees go out and drop bombs in drop books in the laps of fallen conditioned souls. Sadly, unfortunately, if we don't do that, then there will be no benefit actually. And it's sad, because in our Krishna consciousness movement, I've been hearing from Ananda Chaitanya Prabhu, who's been traveling a lot through US. This is why these days he's not coming so much to Switzerland. He's engaging a lot in traveling through US, distributing our Guru Maharaj's books. He's been telling me about the temples that are in US, and it's just like one or two brahmacharis maintaining the deity worship, no morning program really, and just like Indian congregation who comes on weekends to the temple or in the evenings, and there's nothing to it. There's just a religion. There's just another church where people go on Sundays, they pray, they give a donation, they go home, and there's no mode of sacrifice, no spirit, no mission, nothing really that we can hold on to and say that, okay, this is so great, and nothing that's really enlivening us. How many of you here have been doing a full Srila Prabhupada marathon in your lives? Like 30 days? Yeah. 3 devotees. It's I'm sure that you experienced the bliss. It's not easy. 30 days, it's very difficult to be out there. It's a mental challenge, it's a challenge physically, it's a challenge from so many different perspectives. It's a challenge for the temple because the devotees are fully engaged in Sankirtan. But the mood, the reciprocation, the ecstasy that you get by engaging in this service and by the focus that you have during such marathons, it just enlivens the whole temple, and it enlivens us. It's good for the people outside, it's good for the temple. And this is our only chance, our only way that we can actually bring people to Krishna consciousness. Nobody wants to join another religion, especially in Switzerland. People are very much, everybody has their own idea about life. People are very decided about, I don't know, generally quite good ideas in Switzerland, like more in the mode of goodness, like people like eco-farming, people like meditation, yoga, and these kind of things. But they have their own ideas, and it's really hard to change them. I can always experience this on Sankirtan here. In Hungary, people are more in Tamagun. They're like, just it's easier for them to accept anything, and they go along with anything. But here, like, in Switzerland, when you go out on book distribution, you really have to have something deeper to be able to distribute these books to people. That words and philosophy itself doesn't really work unless you're a great scholar, which I'm personally not, and I find it very hard if I just try to speak to them and try to convince them. They have very good arguments also. They know what they're talking about. Many times Swiss people are quite intelligent and well educated. But when we are in Krishna consciousness, we are experiencing the bliss of Krishna consciousness, like through Harinam and so on, then even these people, they see us, they see our bliss, and maybe they start joining us in singing and dancing. They go beyond their the borders that they build around them, the shields and so on, their ideas about life, about what's wrong and what's right. Because ultimately this Krishna consciousness movement is not just a religious thing, it's not just a sect, it's not just a few people who are bold and who are dressing themselves in funny robes and leaving a weird bunch of hair in their back. But we are actually, this is like the nature of the soul, to be engaged in Krishna consciousness, to sing the Hare Krishna mantra, to be experiencing this bliss. It's something that's meant for everyone. And people can appreciate this, because when they see us on the street, it's touching their soul. It's touching the essence of who they are, and they just cannot stay away from it. Going back to the topic of studying these teachings and trying to elevate ourselves spiritually through philosophy, through study. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said that I cannot study the Vedas, I cannot study philosophy. My spiritual master called me a fool. And it's actually, I will just read the verse because it's really nice. So, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied to Prakashananda Sarasvati, "My dear sir, kindly hear the reason. My spiritual master considered me a fool, and therefore he chastised me." "You are a fool," he said. "You are not qualified to study Vedanta philosophy. Therefore you must always chant the holy name of Krishna. This is the essence of all mantras or Vedic hymns." So we have the essence. We don't... of course, I'm not saying that we shouldn't read, we shouldn't study, and we shouldn't have, for example, Srimad Bhattam class. It's important. It's helping us to cultivate intelligence and to stay in Krishna consciousness, to be able to appreciate and to deal with the mind when we have difficulties in experiencing the bliss of Krishna consciousness and so on. But if we really have this ecstasy in our temples, this mood of Sankirtan is kept alive and there is a fire, then everybody is enlivened to take part, to do their best, and the mental platform just becomes something very easy to surpass. Like just like during the marathons, for example, we can see that it just becomes so easy, so natural to be able to control the mind. The mind is not saying so many things anymore. It's not hard to overcome material desires and all these kind of things. You're just absorbed in Krishna consciousness, and there's nothing else that bothers you. And we could see this in Srila Prabhupada's times, especially in the beginning days. That's the real bliss generally, the beginning days, because there's not much else other than just absorption in Krishna consciousness, just absorption in the Sankirtan mission. In the beginning days, generally, you don't have much management to do, you don't have many problems in society and so on that you have to solve. So devotees can just absorb in these things. And I think it's an important part also to keep things simple. That I think it's a problem when we are having such huge temples as here, for example, but we don't have so many devotees to contribute to maintain it and so on. And yeah, it's unfortunate that we have to sacrifice these activities like Harinam, Prasadam distribution, book distribution, for just maintaining ourselves and keeping ourselves in a way alive. But at least internally in all these activities that we do while we're in the temple, we shouldn't just do them to maintain ourselves, to eat, sleep, and ultimately, if we just do that, we just fall down. We should try our best to cultivate Krishna consciousness, to cultivate the real mode of devotional service, and to go out of our way to be able to experience that. So whenever we have time, some free space, we can go out on the street, for example, distribute books, or go out on Harinam, and really always put ourselves on the line for these things, because that's ultimately when you're experiencing the nectar of Krishna consciousness, when you go beyond these senses, beyond the body. It pushes you to stop identifying yourself with the body, with your position, with the world around you. My Guru Maharaj was, a few years ago, he went out on book distribution during the marathon for one day. And he went to the first person. The first person who he approached was very rude to him. He told him, like, just get out of here, like, I'm not interested in your spiritual whatever. I think it's better if I don't say the exact words here. But my Guru Maharaj turned around, went to the devotees and said, "This is so nice." He was in ecstasy, he was in bliss. He said that this is so nice when I'm in the temple, when I'm a sannyasi, I'm a guru and all these kind of things, and I receive all this respect and so on. But when I'm here on the street, nobody knows I'm a guru, nobody knows I'm a sannyasi, nobody knows what this means. And it's like so nice to just not get this respect, to really be able to feel myself as no one, actually. Because ultimately we are all servants of Krishna, and we are here in this material world Jagannath Baladev Subhadramai ki jai. Shri Shri Gauranitai ki jai. We are here in this material world because we are seeking for happiness, but we are seeking for it in the wrong place. We are seeking for adoration and all these kind of things away from Krishna. And it's a danger that even when we come to Krishna consciousness, we will continue seeking for that adoration through receiving different badges, like first you receive initiation, first initiation, second initiation, then you receive certain services around the temple, and you get all these badges, but they don't really have any meaning. They will just make us proud if we are not careful. We always have to remember that actually I'm just a servant of Krishna, I'm no one, and whatever I do good is just Krishna's empowerment. And this is what book distribution really forces us to understand, that actually I cannot do anything. If you think that I'm the doer and today I'll distribute 100 books and so on, you'll just have the worst day in your life, because you'll just struggle the whole day going from one person to another, and you'll find it so difficult. And whenever you get rejected, it will just kick your false ego, because you think yourself the doer. But when you put things in Krishna's hand, when you get out of the way and you allow Krishna to distribute these books, even if you have a good day or a bad day, you will still feel blissful, because every person that you interact with, you see it in relationship with Krishna. You see every interaction in relationship with Krishna, and you are asking, like, what does Krishna want me to learn from this, and so on. Harinamananda Prabhu, who was the greatest book distributor of Switzerland. Again, this is a story that I heard from my Guru Maharaj, that he asked my Guru Maharaj met Harinamananda Prabhu at one time, I think in Mayapur or Vrindavan or somewhere, and he asked him, like, how did you distribute so many books? How did you manage to distribute 1,000 books in a day? It just seems so inconceivable. And then his reply was that I just try to get out of the way. And since then, my Guru Maharaj is always smashing this point during marathons and so on. Always he's saying, just get out of the way. That's all we have to do, really. And that's all we have to do when we go out on Sankirtan, and that's all we have to do when we are in the temple doing our services. We just have to stay out of the way and to see how Krishna is actually acting. And it happens. I would encourage the devotees in this temple, I would encourage Damodar Prasad Prabhu to organize Sankirtan marathons for devotees for, 3, 4, 5 days sometimes, from time to time. When devotees in the temple, the whole mood of the temple is, okay, we are in Mangalarati, we are singing, we are praying for our Guru Maharaj's mercy, for Srila Prabhupada's mercy, to empower us to become tools in Krishna's hands, to go out on book distribution. It's really enlivening the whole mood of the temple. It's bringing devotees to in a right consciousness, in Krishna consciousness ultimately. And it's very healthy for us to be able to experience that. And there is a concern that, okay, if all the devotees go out on book distribution, or most of the devotees go out on book distribution, then who will be here to maintain a temple, to maintain the different programs, to maintain deity worship and so on? And we have to manage to a certain degree all these kind of things. But we also have to trust Krishna, that when we put ourselves on the line, when we really give ourselves, then Krishna takes care. There is this verse in Bhagavad Gita, which I'm very ashamed that I didn't learn yet. Ananyas chintayantu mam ye jana paripasate tesham nitya biyuktanam yogakshema vahamyaham. That to those who always worship Krishna with exclusive devotion, meditating on his transcendental form, to them he carries what they lack and he preserves what they have. So Krishna will send, first of all, Krishna will send the people, and that's something that we can surely believe in, because we have previous experience that Krishna will send the people if if we really desire it, if we pray for it. He will send the people to buy the books, he will send the people to join the temple and to take care of all these activities that are going on in the temple. But ultimately Krishna can even manage and solve managerial problems in the temple. And that's something that I heard from managers themselves, that whenever they just kind of had such a strong desire to go out on books and they try to put aside managerial things for some time to be able to focus on this book distribution, then those kind of things many times they got solved by themselves, and life became easier. And that's what I'm personally trying to practice right now also in Budapest. I'm trying to engage myself as much as possible again into Sankirtan, because I just see that it's the only way that I can stay alive in Krishna consciousness, and it's the only way that I can really have a real contribution to Srila Prabhupada's mission. Srila Prabhupada didn't want our temples to just be places where devotees maintain deity worship. In a way, deity worship is not even so important because it's not our way of spiritual realization, it's not our spiritual practice in Kali Yuga. We maintain deity worship and we do deity worship because it's helping us also to be in a good consciousness, but ultimately and to establish a personal relationship with Krishna. But ultimately Srila Prabhupada, I think, I recall hearing this, that he would many times say that just forget deity worship, just go out on book distribution, distribute my books. If we cannot engage ourselves in the Sankirtan mission, then what's the point of just maintaining temples? Keep things simple and just try to engage as much as possible. I will end here. There is still 4 minutes for additions, questions, or concerns, corrections. Please excuse me, I have difficulties. If I don't have much time to prepare for a class, I have difficulties to prepare my thoughts, and it might have been a little bit, the class might have been everywhere, but I hope the message went through. Yeah, please.
Thank you for your sincere speech. Before I ask my question, I remember how Srila Shivarama Swami Maharaj went out for Sankirtan also, and someone told, "Oh, your bosses, your leaders, they are just taking money." And he said, "I'm the boss, I'm the leader." And you are poor people outside just distributing books. And he said, "I'm the leader, I'm the boss, I'm distributing." So my question, in USA especially, but also in many European towns, mostly congregation now is Indians, especially in USA. And one devotee, he's in USA now, and he tries to show to devotees that just in to show Indian culture, it's not properly, because just Indians are attracted. And he says that it's nice if grihasthas are in officially in official clothes and so on. And also he says that it's very important to understand what we are singing and to translate these songs, or at least to know word by word translation, otherwise it doesn't have any sense. Like Kinchana Krishna Prabhu yesterday also mentioned. That Prabhupada told just for monks to go out like monks, because everyone knows that this is monk. And for grihasthas, not so much. And like example, when I distributed books in Hungary, I went out in sari, and most of people were afraid of me. They thought I'm gypsy. Then Srila Shivarama Swami Maharaj every evening he was waiting like, how much? And of course I wanted to increase my Sankirtan, and then I approached to temple president, to your sisters, god sisters. They said, just change sari for local, just skirt at least. But when I was in long skirt, they thought I'm evangelist, you know. So then I made a little bit shorter skirt. So what is your experience in this, and what do you think?
In wearing karmic clothes versus...
No, for monks, he says that for monks it's not very important because monks, everyone sees it is a monk because he's monk because very orange, very bright. Everyone knows this is a monk. But for, like, for example, in sari, most of people thinks it's gypsy.
I personally never wore sari, so at least not in this life. So I wouldn't know what's the experience.
In general, I mean in general, what do you think?
In Hungary, generally, Matajis go out in sari, and I don't, as long as, I don't know, I guess you're distributing in English places in Hungary, right, where tourists were. So then tourists don't know, but Hungarian people know, and they really appreciate our Krishna consciousness in Hungary. It's a very healthy relationship with the public, so I think it's nice to represent it in that way. I believe that if devotees are dressed nicely, that if we have nice tilak on and we have all the signs of a Vaishnava, then we will not necessarily look like gypsies who are generally dressed like in a negligent way with ugly mixture of colors. I'm from Romania, so I know what I'm talking about. Gypsies are there all everywhere, and yeah, I think we should just really represent our culture nicely, and ultimately, yeah, if maybe that doesn't work, then we accept the dress of karmi, or yeah, we try to dress in a nice way, elegant way. Srila Prabhupada said it's fine, but he put emphasis that devotees are nicely dressed, like devotees who were distributing in airports, they were distributing in shirts with pants and very nicely dressed like true gentlemen, because that's ultimately what we are. We're aspiring, at least, to be true gentlemen, and the conception of a gentleman in our modern society is generally someone who's dressed in tie and shirt and everything. For women, I guess there can also be elegant dresses that can help book distribution. That's all I can say on this topic, sorry. Yes, Mataji.
У меня нет вопросов, я просто хотела вас очень сильно поблагодарить за великолепную лекцию. Вы зря сомневались. Мне кажется, вам просто очень важно проповедовать. У вас великолепные лекции. Ира, переведи, пожалуйста.
She doesn't have any questions. She just wanted to be grateful for amazing lecture, and she said that it's don't have any doubts. You should give lectures. I'm adding because of your sincerity.
If I said anything good, it's Damodar Prasad Prabhu's mercy, because I asked for his empowerment before I gave this class. I mean, when he asked me to give class.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, you mentioned that if a temple doesn't have any Sankirtan, then it feels like there is not really... It's just like
It died.
like another church. The Sankirtan has to be there. So if we are the Sankirtan movement and there's Sankirtan going on, and then all the other services are like contributing. Deity worship, people come and see Krishna and Prasadam, which is prepared for the Sankirtan devotees. So you still say that the devotees who are supporting the Sankirtan devotees, they're still not experiencing that same bliss? Because in the spiritual world, the devotees who are engaging others in Krishna service, they experience more bliss yourself.
No, of course, like all these services are important, and devotees who are doing these services can experience bliss. But it really depends on us, on our consciousness, because ultimately it's not about the service that we do, it's about the consciousness that we have when we render the service. And yeah, if there are Sankirtan devotees, generally the whole, like if there are Sankirtan devotees who are fully engaged in Sankirtan, the whole mood of the temple raises. So the devotees who are doing deity worship, the devotees who are cooking and so on, they are doing this in the mode of Sankirtan, that, you know, the Sankirtan devotees will come and they will see how beautiful the deities are dressed, or that the Sankirtan devotees will taste this prasadam and will be so inspired to go out on book and distribution, you know. So if that consciousness is there, then of course they are experiencing the same bliss. But if there are no Sankirtan devotees, then what's the point? You know. One thing that really helps in Hungary is that we maintain the temple by Sankirtan, and that there's no other way to maintain the temple. That we don't accept any other way to maintain the temple. We have so many ways of income. We have this 1% that people in general are giving to Krishna consciousness and so on, 1% of tax, and it's a lot of Lakshmi, and we could easily maintain our temple from that, from donations, from devotees and so on. We could organize different systems from Nitya Seva or so. But Srila Shivaram Swami Maharaj just said no, Budapest temple should maintain itself from book distribution, and we find it hard. We are kind of in debt in the last few years especially, but this is the goal, and this is really keeping Sankirtan on, and it's kind of a thing that makes us need to do Sankirtan, that makes Sankirtan a priority, because without Sankirtan we wouldn't be able to maintain ourselves. So such decisions can be taken for.
So even the donations that you get in the temple, they do something like
Yeah, generally, like for example, the donations that we have in front of the altar that we get there, they go for the deity worship, or so, for the pujari department. But then Sankirtan is meant to pay for the bills and all these kind of things also.
And what is done with this 1% tax?
Mainly Krishna Valley gets this, and other projects. Sorry? Those are two different, because one is for, yeah.
For building things?
Yeah. Yeah. For new projects, generally. For maintenance, Sankirtan. Yeah.
May I say something, because I've been serving in the Budapest temple, and also probably I was serving, I don't know what I was doing in Budapest or in the Christian temple, but well, I left most of my material stuff there, and still they told us, my mother, not to show up again, Amanda, so yeah, people who went there just to, don't have troubles, and I served for prasadam, I paid for prasadam, I left half of my body, whatever there, and they can have everything, I left something. So this was one of the reasons I was like, okay, I'm not going to the temple anymore, because one of the bhakta come there and say that, oh, is this your mother? And it was like, is this public enemy number 1? And I was like, what the hell is this? Hare Krishna.
Whatever. This temple is great. The London temple is great. In London, you are not allowed to give fires to some other people.
Because of racial profiling or whatever.
I understand your frustration. This
I
is
was frustrated.
this is naturally gonna happen in societies where there is management, where there is politics and so on. It's just a natural outcome that yeah, there's gonna be politics. And I don't know what's your situation, I don't know what happened and so on, what's the reasons and so on. But all I can say is Hare Krishna, go out on Sankirtan, and when, when 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 you do just book distribution, there's no other problems that are coming up. When you do management and so on, there's many problems, but ultimately those problems, we can also see them as Krishna's mercy. We can perceive difficulties in our lives, we can see all these things as Krishna's mercy, and we might not be able to understand it now, but we will understand it later. General difficulties make us strong in spiritual life.
It's obvious that there is some frustration, some emotion. I think these things can be addressed in a nice form. We can mention these maybe from Budapest, these not mentioned. So I would suggest maybe you can somehow.
Yeah, if I can help you in any way, yeah, sure.
Because there's a way to address these things for usually Bhagavatam becomes a little difficult because it's a public forum. So maybe you can connect that with
Sure.
us.
Thank you very much. We'll end here, but thank you very much for listening and for being here. You inspired me to be able to say something useful, I hope. And excuse me for any offenses that I might have committed. That was not my intention. My intention is just to be able to understand myself deeper, what the Sankirtan mission is really about, to be able to practice it nicely. And if I can share anything with others, that's bonus. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jai.
So, Dayalu, this is also Sankirtan. Yes. You can try to maybe thank Krishna. It's a good match. Just need to bring the two together. That's everybody happy with.
Yes, please. For yourself.